Meat City, baby.
Hello and welcome back to Meat City Gaming. JD here with another achievement guide in Frostpunk. In this video, we are going to unlock my last achievement in Frostpunk. It is Ultramarathon Extreme, and this is a 2-for-1 or even a 3-for-1. Unlike all of the other achievements in the game, this is a difficulty achievement that actually stacks with increasing difficulty. You get 15 gamer score for Ultramarathon Extreme and hard, and I think there's one for medium as well. 15 gamer score each to survive 100 days of endurance mode on extreme difficulty. And what does that mean? Well, in the game there is endless mode, which is no story, no scenario. You just start with a base, you start with some people, and you build and you go and you see if you can survive. And there's different flavors of endless mode. There's an easy one for like building and just taking it easy, and it gets all the way up to endurance, which is the hard grind. And then within those modes, or those variations of the mode, there are again the difficulty sliders. So for this achievement, to get extreme, you need to do endless mode, in extreme, and in the endurance mode as well. So what do we do? The first thing we need to do is pick our map. And I recommend the crater map. I've seen other people do it there. It's just a good layout. There's no extra hurdles to jump through. Some of the other maps have bridges you have to build to access the other resources and other challenges. Crater, it's a nice, easy setup, standard, good size. You don't need anything huge here. You don't need anything too tiny because then it'll be limited in resources. It's just a well-balanced map. So we pick crater, and then we also need to make sure that once we do that, we move all of our difficulty sliders to extreme. There are 3 of them. They all go to extreme. And then also we want to turn off the random events. At the bottom of the 3 sliders, there's an option for random events. It's defaulted to on. Turn it off. You do not need that to be on in order to unlock this achievement. And if you do that, you'll unlock Ultramarathon Extreme. There's also an achievement for hard. So if you have those 3 sliders all the way to hard, then you'll also get that achievement. But again, the achievements stack. So for Ultramarathon hard, it's on hard difficulty or greater. And so I double dipped here. I did some practice runs. I did it on easy mode. I did it on builder mode. I did a medium run, felt pretty good about the mode. And then I decided to get a 2-for-1 and get hard and extreme in the same run, which is what you're going to see here. There are several variations of each of the maps, even after you've selected all of those options, right? We're in endless mode, we're in endurance mode, we're in extreme difficulty, we're picking crater, but then the start of the map, when it loads up, it has a bunch of different random variations that you can get. Different places for the resources, different amounts of the resources. It's pretty wild. Even different starting temperatures. I'm using Fahrenheit or freedom units, and there were 2 versions of the temperature for the first day, one at -4 degrees and one at I think it was 20 or 22 degrees. And obviously you want to start with the warmer temperature if you can. It seems to be a smoother temperature curve. You will get a big spike on like day 4 or 5 in terms of a drop in temperature, but it's way easier to start at the -4 than it is at the -20. So on top of that, we also want a specific setup in terms of where the resources are allocated, because we want to be as condensed and focused as possible. And so we only want to heat as small an area as we can in order to conserve resources. So the map that I like is one that has 2 steel mill plants right next to each other, and then about, I don't know, 30 to 40 degrees around the clock. So if they're at 12 o'clock, then maybe at 2 or 2:30 is a wall drill location. That's the setup that we're looking for. If you have all that, before you do anything else, save, because it can be a lot of reloading, selecting all the options, generating the map, loading in, and then checking, oh, it's not the right one. Oh, it's not the right temperature. Oh, I got the setup I want, but it's starting at -20 instead of -4. So reload, right? Reload. Once you have all the conditions met, you got the difficulty, you got the map, you got the resource location, you got the starting temperature, save before you do anything else, and then keep that save. Unlike the survivor mode in the scenarios, you can make multiple saves here. It doesn't just give you one save slot that gets overwritten. You can make the full set of saves. So this is one save that you keep no matter what. If your run goes bad, 4 hours from now, you can always start fresh and not have to go through that grind again of getting the perfect setup for your starting location. With all of that setup out of the way, how do we go about getting this achievement? First, I'll say it is difficult. It is a grind, but I did some early runs that all failed, and I got to a certain point, day 7 and it failed, day 14 and it failed. I think I got to day 30 or 40 and it failed. The big problem here is you need to stay ahead of the technology curve. The temperature is going to get colder and you're going to get these brutal storms, and if you don't keep up with the technology push, you're going to crash at some point. So we need to push technology early and often. And as you're going to see in this run, when you do things well, it becomes a cakewalk. It's tough at the beginning, but by they could have made this survive to day 50, because days 50 to 100, there's nothing you're doing. You've got all the technology, you're just grinding out days at that point. So it is a tough slope, and then it just plateaus and you're golden. So if you get there, you know that you'll have this well in advance. So to start off, what we're going to do, we're going to research or pass the law for the 24-hour emergency shift. And we're also going to build 2 workshops so that we can get some research going. And the research that we're going to get going is the beacon. It is imperative that we get the beacon built as early as possible, because the number one thing that we're going to need is more people. And the only way to get more people in endless mode is to send out scouting parties and find them at various locations. And how those locations work is a little bit tricky. So we'll talk about that in just a minute. Now, when we hit go, we're going to start, before we hit go, we're going to start divvying up our people. What I like to do is orient the map so that those steel mills are located at about 12 o'clock, maybe 12:30, maybe 1 o'clock. And then the wall drills at like 2:30 or 3. That puts a set of resources to your maybe 7 o'clock or so. There's 2 woods and there's a steel there. We want to fill those up. The steel can maybe get 10 people. Both woods get a full complement of workers. Wood is the first thing that we're going to crunch on here, because we need a lot of it for a lot of early projects. So we're going to have those 3 piles going, and we are going to emergency shift them, which is going to cause a lot of discontent, but that's okay. If you do it early enough, before you start the day, before you unpause the game and let it start to run, put them all there, hit emergency shift, they won't die. The rest of the run, after your game has started, if you put people in an emergency shift, you have a good chance. I think it's guaranteed, but maybe it's just a percentage. It seems to always happen. Somebody will die when you put an emergency shift on a building. And as I just said, people are super important. We can't afford to lose anybody. So we're pretty much not going to touch emergency shift after this. You get this first one for free, and then we're not going to touch it again because it'll cost us people in future uses. We do have some workers left, so we're going to also collect some coal. We do need a little bit. I think you can get through the first night without it, but coal is going to be important. Throw a couple workers on coal, and then anybody left over, again, we're going to double down on wood. But only 3 emergency shifts. You can survive 4, but it makes things much more difficult. It's going to bump that discontent up. You're going to get people upset early, and you're not going to have the tools available to lower that discontent. So I think 3 is plenty, and as you see, it works here. So those first 3 all clump together. We want to take one of those clumps, and we're going to eliminate that group with our emergency shift over the first 24 hours. And then we'll move our people into gathering posts to get the other sets of resources. But remove that one chunk. We don't want to take one chunk of wood from here and one chunk of steel from here and one chunk of wood from here, because then you'll still need to gather resources from all the clumps. Get one of the clumps out of there, and then you don't have to build a gathering post for that one later on. We are not going to turn the generator on for the first day, and for most days, the generator is going to stay off until we get a cold snap that hits cold enough to disable our medical tents. If the medical tents get shut down because it's too cold, then we need the generator during the day. Otherwise, it's off during the day and it gets turned on at the end of the work shift. You can do it at 1800, you can do it at 2000 hours or 10 p.m. but I like to not mess around with it too much. Turn it on, and we're gonna overdrive almost whenever we can. You can't quite keep up. You start to lose that battle until you get some technologies researched. But first night for sure, it goes on at 1800 as soon as the work shift ends, and we overdrive it. And if you do that, you can stay under 10 people sick, which means you can put them in 2 medical tents and not have anybody die, which is gonna be super important. So that first day, we're just gonna, once we have all the setup done, again, you could throw down another save because that's gonna be a pretty basic setup, having all of those people in all of those places, building those buildings. You can save, and then you're just gonna, boom, accelerate through the day until we get to nighttime. Nighttime comes, continue to let those groups on the 24-hour piles go, let them collect those resources, but we're going to build those 2 medical tents that I mentioned so that the sick people can get in there. Reduce down your engineers, but keep 1 in that second workshop so you get the bonus for it doing research, which again is the beacon on this first day. So I have 5 engineers in the first workshop, 1 in the second, so I'm still getting that boost. And then that leaves you, I think, 6 engineers or so to divvy up into the other medical tents to get your people back from that first night of sickness. That is one of the big battles here. We want to get our research advanced to the point where we can get people better that get sick the night before. So they get sick overnight, we want them better before the next group of people get sick the next night, so we stay ahead of the curve and we're not constantly falling behind by having more and more people sick in those medical tents. As I mentioned, we're also gonna put down a gathering post or 2, because as people finish up on those emergency shift piles, as they deplete those resources, we wanna have a place to shift them into, and that will more efficiently let us gather resources with just 10 people in a gathering post from 2 or 3 piles, rather than 15 people on each individual pile. Day 2, the generator again gets shut down for the day shift. We want to build the beacon. So make sure that you've got enough steel. By doing that 10 people, 24 hours on the steel pile, you should have enough steel to build the beacon. And then again, we're gonna need 40 wood to create the scout team. So make sure you have those people on the wood piles so that they can get the scout team up and running as soon as the beacon is built. We wanna get them out as early as possible on day 2. And you can do that special little trick where if everybody's working and there's no idle people, you can then go into the building where there are sick people. So you have those 8 or 9 people that are sick, find where they work and dismiss them from the job until you have 5 of those sick workers dismissed. You can then create the scout team and it will pull those 5 sick people, which gets them out of your population and sends them out to do the scouting mission. Now, important to note, they are still sick. So when they come back to town, they'll be sick and they'll need to get into a medical tent, but that's a problem for later when we're much better equipped to deal with it. For now, get them out of the sick pile into a scout team, and we're gonna send them out to do their job. The second technology that we're going to research is heaters, and the second law that we're going to pass is extended shift. Extended shift is our friend here. We are going to abuse it. You want the research on the workshops almost all the time to have extended shift, and any wood piles that are collecting, some of the coal piles that are collecting, we want to use that extended shift to get those extra hours of work and extra gathering of resources. We are going to be constantly up against the discontent bar, maxing out. They're gonna revolt, and then you're gonna do something. You'll build some houses, you'll make a promise, you'll pass a law, and you'll get that discontent down before you have that 2-hour or that 2-day window expire. So we're gonna be playing that game, get the extended hours going, and then when you need to, when they're revolting, shut it off to get that discontent down. And as soon as you get under the bar and you get the clock reset, it's cranking back up again, because we need to push early on here, especially, as I said, with the research and with the wood gathering. So we made this huge push to get the scout team up and running on day 2. Why? Well, as I said, the thing that we need the most to get a successful run going here is additional workers. How do we get additional workers? A scout has to go to a location and find people there. How this works is a little bit tricky, but a little bit predictable if you're willing to do a little bit of save manipulation. And again, it's perfectly legal here because you can make multiple saves without doing a save and quit rewrite like the survivor mode in the scenarios. The locations where the survivors are is set at the start of each game / storm cycle. So when the beacon goes down, you now can create the scout team. When you have the scout team, you can pull out to the map and send them somewhere in the Frostland. And there's going to be 3 locations that you can start at. When that happens, the spawns are set. So you can only see those 1, 2, 3, but when you go to each one, it's going to unlock more of a chain farther and farther from your base. And all of that, as far as I know, is static once you've created the scout team. So there is, again, based on my couple of playthroughs here, one of the branches will have a group of people 2 locations away from your base, and one will have them 3 locations away from your base, and one won't have them, or maybe they're really, really far out. But there's not enough time to do all that. So what I would do, as soon as you have the scout team up and running, again, hopefully it's early on day 2, that's another save point, because when you send your scout team out, if you send them to the first location, to the second location, to the third location, and you haven't found anybody, you need to go back and do a reload from that save spot and send them somewhere else. Because if you go out three locations deep with your scout team and you don't get any people, the run is going to be super rough. You're probably not going to get there. So save, and then you're going to spend the next day or 2 getting your scout location. They're never at the first location. There's never citizens to be found at that first location. It's always at least 2 or 3 locations deep. So send them to that first location, send them to the second. Did you find citizens? I would suggest reloading, because if you can get them at the second location, you're going to be way ahead of the game. You'll see in my playthrough, I found them at the 3rd location, and then at the very end, right before the storm, I went to the other route and found them at the 2nd location on that other leg. So if you can do it the opposite way, get them at the second tier location early, and then go get the 3rd location later, you're going to be so far ahead that this playthrough will be pretty easy. So with the scout team on its way, we make it to the 2nd night. Again, make sure you turn the generator on. Anytime you make a mistake like that, you let the generator off until 2 a.m. Oh crap, I forgot. Well, you're going to get a bunch of sick people, and you're going to be behind the 8 ball, and your run is probably going to fail. So be careful. Think about it. Every time there's a start of shift or an end of shift, there's things you have to do. Turn the generator on. Turn the overdrive off. Shift people around to where they're working. Maybe you're doing extended shift. Maybe you're turning off extended shift. Maybe you're shuffling people to the medical tents. Maybe you're shuffling engineers between the medical tents and the workshops. Just take a moment whenever those changes happen and make sure you've done everything that you need to do at that time. So night 2, we need to make sure that we build a cookhouse, because on day 3, during the day, we want people turning our raw food into rations. Otherwise, people will start to eat the raw food, and then again, you'll be behind and a bunch of people are going to die before you get a fresh batch of food incoming. So in order to supplement that, we're also going to pass the soup law this night, because that will extend how far those rations go. Again, it's going to make people unhappy. It's going to raise that discontent. We're going to keep playing that game until much later in the scenario, but it's necessary to keep people from starving and dying, which makes them much less happy than just having soup does. Additionally, we're going to build a number of tents. Probably on the first night, you're going to get the complaint, hey, we need a roof over our heads. Pick the option to build some tents, and now we're going to satisfy that. I think it's just 4 tents that you need to build. I have a special way that I'm building them here that will kind of condense them around one steam hub, while also letting us get a fighting pit that will cover everybody, and a house of worship that will cover everybody, or prayer house, whatever they call it, that will cover everybody there, all in one tight grouping. So start with those first 4, satisfy that promise, it'll lower some discontent and keep this run going. Day 3, we want to start with corpse disposal. We're working our way toward organ transplants. And again, the big goal here, I mentioned this briefly earlier, we want our medical teams to be working as efficiently as possible to reduce the time it takes to cure people from being sick, make sure the temperature is good, make sure they are fully staffed, and we want research wherever we can to improve that efficiency, to shorten the time that it takes to get somebody who gets sick back into the workforce. We'll also be able to research steam hubs, so now we'll have both heaters and steam hubs ready for that first double temperature drop, which if we didn't have it otherwise would be pretty rough for our people to get through. On the 3rd night, we're going to finish building tents so that everybody has a home, and also finish building gathering posts so all of the various groupings of resources around the map have a gathering post on them, have a road leading back to the base, so that now we can just put 10 people on each pile and have those resources coming in, and still have enough people to cover all the other tasks that we need. them to. If you make it here, the next big hurdle is a two-parter. We need to get a permanent supply of wood incoming, and we need to get a supply of food incoming. And again, how you tackle this will depend a little bit based on your run. It's ideal, it's better in my view, if you can make the hot houses first, because you want that food coming in so people aren't starving. Food is going to be a big problem early on until we can kind of get ahead of the curve, but your wood supply is extremely limited. It's only what you have in those piles. You can, of course, make a sawmill and collect the trees around the map, but then you're wasting research on the sawmills, you're wasting time and resources building the sawmills, and you're wasting people manning the sawmills when you could just have a wall drill, which is much more efficient and has an infinite supply of resources. So I would suggest avoid the sawmill, only get the wall drill, but you might need to do a little bit of math. Can I research the hothouse, build the hothouse, research the wall drill, build the wall drill with the wood that I have remaining in those piles? Or will I run out at step 3, and then if I'm short and I can't make the wall drill, if I can research it but I can't build it, then the run is over, right? You failed. You're gonna have to, stop and go get a sawmill to get the last 10 wood, or take apart your medical tents, or destroy some roads. Like, if you start getting there, the run's already over. So if that's the case, I'm gonna come up short, then do the wall drill first and do the hothouses second. But if you can make it work, I suggest hothouses first, wall drill second. But it may change. I had to do the wall drill first in my run. Again, where your resources are, where your scout team is, how they're getting back, are they bringing wood with them? All of that may change the scenario a little bit. So make the call based on how your run is going. Somewhere during this time, your scout team will find their set of survivors, whether it's at the 2nd tier location or the 3rd tier location. You're gonna find a bunch of children, some engineers, and some workers. Escort them back to the base. They take forever to do it on their own. You want them back as soon as possible. You need those extra bodies working in your various locations. So escort them back. Hopefully your scout team is also bringing back some much needed resources, whether it's raw food or it's some wood. Those are ideal. Steel is fine, coal is fine, but hopefully it's wood and raw food. With them on the way back to the base, at some point before they get there, you want to pass the child labor law. I tried to do this without that and have the child specialists, because then you can have them assist the medical. They can become medical assistants, and it makes your medical tents super efficient, which is great, except that you have to build the child protection houses or the child shelters or whatever they are, and they get cold and they take up space, and it didn't work. And there are a bunch of kids that you're gonna bring into the town, and having them available to go into the hothouses and the gathering posts is just invaluable. So I highly recommend you go child labor law. You don't need to do it early. You don't need them for those first 2 or 3 days, but at some point when that big group is coming back, when the hothouse is getting built, get the child labor law passed so you have those workers available to go into those easier jobs that the children are allowed to do. If you're able to accomplish all of that, right, the end goal here, we're gonna be at day 9 at the end of this video. It's a long run to the first storm, and then every video after the first storm will be one video to get to the next storm, prepping and surviving. And then the next video, prepping and surviving for the next one, until we get all the way to the end, when again it's cakewalk. Then we'll be at accelerated pace and we'll do multiple storms in a video. But there's so much going on here. This video would be so long, there's so many details. I didn't want to rush it, and I wanted to break this one up into easily digestible chunks, each focused on a specific goal to kind of help you build through that playthrough. So by day 9, what you want to have is the 2 steel mills built and ready to go. Right in front of them, you're going to have 4 gathering posts and 2 coal thumpers, all covered by 1 single coal steam hub. Also, hopefully you've got a shrine to put down there. That might come later, but it'll increase efficiency. And then you've also got the heat for that set location. Around the clock from that, you're gonna have the wall drill. In front of that, you're gonna have your 2 hothouses, and again, 1 steam hub covering all of those. And again, a shrine eventually to improve the efficiency there. If you can get there by day 9, you're in good shape. In the next video, we're gonna cover the technologies that you wanna push for in that last rush up to this storm coming. We're going to need some better housing. We're going to need some heat. We're going to need some overdrive abilities for the generator in order to help us survive that first night. That will be coming in that next video, and we'll actually see the storm and survive the storm before we start fresh on the second prep for the second storm in the video following that. So buckle in. This is a long one, but this is such a difficult achievement, a great one to go out on. Hopefully this helps you out. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time.
Gather your tools. The shift is ending. Listen, everyone. New law is signed. ends. It's off time. Hear me! New law in the city. Gather your tools. The shift is ending. Brace yourselves. Cold is coming. back to work. End of shift. Go rest all who can. Listen, everyone. New law is signed.